Dev, and I recently went to the best Rainbow Six esports event in history, the Six Invitational in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Brazil has won every major and every SI in the last year, and that is thanks to one team, W7M. More on them later. So let's talk about everything SI and Deadly Omen so you can see what it's like to go to a Six Invitational. Dun, 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 dun. To SI with Ubisoft Australia, and joining me was Jens, who is an Australian Twitch streamer that you might be familiar with. She is also a massive Rainbow Six fan and ranked addict. Once we got to Brazil, we met up with Ryan, our Ubisoft rep, and got straight into it. Our schedule was absolutely packed with only 5 full days in Brazil, sandwiched between eye-watering long flights from Australia. I went from Melbourne, where I live in Australia, over to Chile, and then we flew to Sao Paulo, Brazil. On the way home, we flew all the way around the world to Doha in the Middle East and then back to Australia. It is some of the worst international travel that I've ever done. As we touched down in Brazil, we opened Twitch in the line at security, and we noticed that the Aussies of Team Bliss were neck and neck with the powerhouse from France, Wolves Esports, one of the best teams from Europe. And to our amazement, the Aussies actually won, knocking out Wolves and qualifying for the top 8 at the Six Invitational. This is the first time an Aussie team has made the top 8 in the last 4 years. Sadly, Bliss did lose their following match to G2 the next day, and so they didn't qualify to play on stage in the arena in front of about 10,000 Brazilians. But regardless, it was still a massive effort and a huge achievement for Australia and the APAC region. By the way, if you want to keep following Bliss, they'll be competing in the Oceania League in a few weeks' time, and I will be casting that. So make sure that you follow all the R6 Esports OS channels and keep an eye on the Rainbow Six Twitch channel for those streams. Anyway, we touched down in Brazil, jet lagged as hell, Bliss won, amazing. Then it was just dinner, bed, and then bright and early next morning we're up, going to the hotel gym, having a swim. Of course, when you can't sleep, you've got to do something. And we went out for brunch with Jens and Ryan, which was awesome. And then we went for a walk. And I got to tell you, Sao Paulo really surprised me. There are just dogs everywhere. So many trees, so many plants, even right in the center of the city. It's a really lovely place, and I really hope I can go back there. Anyway, at 12, we jumped in a shuttle and went to this amazing studio where the Year 9 Season 1 preview event was being held for all of the content creators from around the world. We had some snacks and drinks, and then Ubisoft presented to us all of the Operation Deadly Omen reveal panels and the Year 9 reveal panels in excruciating detail, the stuff that you would have seen on Saturday and Sunday during the main event. And then we played Operation Deadly Omen. My team was me, Jens, Nonomika from Japan, PJH from Korea, and Pox from Canada. So basically, Team APAC with one lonely Canadian. And I'll just play a bunch of clips, but for me personally, the highlights were no more 1.5s. The ACOG was a lot of fun to have back, especially when you're not getting swung by a bunch of Mozzie Warden mains who have never seen the sun before. I'm a big Goyo enjoyer, so I slapped that ACOG on the Vector and I had a lot of fun. It really feels like you have to make a choice now about whether you want to have a 1x for close and medium engagements or you want to use that ACOG, especially because it takes a long time to aim down sights with that ACOG. I think that the 1.5 was just too well-rounded, too good at everything, and I think that this new season, it's really going to force people to make some tough decisions. The ADS speed and attachment changes were also really interesting. I didn't go through and thoroughly test everything in the shooting range, but I experimented with the new horizontal grip, which increases movement speed, and the laser sight, which has been reworked to improve ADS speed instead of hip fire. Also, instead of having the none option for your sights, you can actually choose iron sights now, and that gives you slightly faster ADS speed. I would totally recommend doing that on operators that have the MP7 or the ARX, like Nomad and Yana, because you can actually use those iron sights pretty well. They're not too bad. Give it a shot. Deimos is crazy. It's a very weird dynamic where the defender can see you while you can see them, but the ping that you get is better than theirs, so you have an advantage. The pistol as well is just simply insane. Every time I died to it, I got a little bit tilted, to be honest, but it's a lot of fun to use. Just don't stand on soft floor against Deimos. Trust me on that. The day after the preview event, we had the developer workshops. Creative director Alex Karpazis, who you've seen from all the panels, and game director Josh Mills, who you might have also seen on those panels, each spoke about the direction of the game, issues like cheating, servers, mouse and keyboard on console, the esports scene, and operator balancing, gadgets, and more. We also had an opportunity to ask questions in that, and there were various reporters, some dialing in online. It was a really cool experience. I personally asked about esports and a little bit about operator balancing and speed balancing as well. 1 speed, 2 speed, 3 speed. And I have a feeling from what Josh Mills said there that we might actually see some changes in the future. I'm really interested to see what Ubisoft are working on with that. After this, I managed to steal Alex Karpazis for an interview, which you can go watch on my YouTube channel. If it's not out yet, it will be out very soon, trust me on that. We also got to use Alex in a whole bunch of the Ubisoft content. We got him to try some Australian foods. It was really fun. That night, we had a big dinner with all the content creators and Ubisoft at this amazing restaurant that felt a little bit like a jungle. There was a literal pond with fish swimming around and a little bridge you could walk over it. The next day, it all began. 6 Invitational 2024. The weekend was just a complete blur of insane matches, shooting videos for Ubisoft, and the best esports crowd I have ever seen. Trust me, I've been to IM Sydney, I've seen good crowds before, even Atlanta, even Berlin. This takes the cake, no questions. Us Aussies took a bunch of Australian food like Vegemite, Tim Tams, and kangaroo jerky over to Brazil, and we fed it to anyone we could find. We did trivia with fairy bread, another Aussie delicacy, and we even did a shoey with Jake Lucky. All of the videos we made, I'll link for you guys below. After making the videos, it was time to sit back and enjoy the show, except for one thing. On Sunday morning, I was involved in the Showmatch, Team World versus Team Brazil. Our team was Macy J, That One Brit, Tom J Sherlock, and Pisty. So APAC, NA, EU, and MENA. And I gotta tell you, the Showmatch was insane. I hadn't played Siege since I was back at home in Australia ages before, and it's a completely different ballgame when you're up on a huge stage in a massive stadium with thousands of Brazilians screaming against you. It was so obvious who they were cheering for, and it really was not us. I could literally feel my table shaking every time the crowd cheered, and every time you heard something from the big screen as well, it's just like vibrating. Your table is vibrating. I was amazed at the over-ear headphones they've got. I could barely hear a thing. There's really good noise cancelling in those, and we didn't even have in-ears, it was just the big over-ear ones. It was like being in a helicopter, you just couldn't hear anything. Anyway, game starts, Macy J had a few big clutches, and then I accidentally team killed him, but then clutched the 1v3, and it was amazing. I'm just having the time of my life, playing it up to the camera, you know how it is. I was wearing all these different jerseys from old APAC teams as a nod of respect to the years past, so I had Luna Metal from Aerowolf, you might remember they beat the EU Giants roster back in Tokoname Pro League Finals in 2019. Mantis, that old Korean roster who became Cloud9, Sandbox, eventually Fear X, and Nora Rengo from Japan, one of the most famous OG teams in the game. For the final round of the match, we had to swap our mouse and keyboard hands, which was utterly ridiculous. But I did cheese it a little bit by playing Blitz, and I got the final kill and we won! The first and only time a non-Brazil team won on the stage at SI24 in front of the Brazilian crowd with the crowd cheering against them was us in the show match. The crowd was booing and hating us, and it was just hilarious. I waited until the camera was on me after the game and the crowd was all sad and stuff, and then I took off my Norengo jersey to reveal W7M! I was wearing a Brazilian jersey all along, and the crowd absolutely loved it. Without a doubt, one of my best gaming memories was that moment, and it's going to stick with me for a long time. Even though the Brazilian fans are really passionate and they love booing for the opposition, they love cheering for their teams, they were so considerate, and I very much felt respected. From then on, the rest of the day, I had people coming up to me and saying like, so well played, and like wanting to get signatures and like high fives and stuff, and that was just really nice. Like, massive respect to the Brazilian community. They're not only passionate, but they're also extremely respectful as well. So GG, Showmatch was over, time to watch the music performance, the Year 9 reveal, and of course the grand final. The music was so good. They had Ego Kill Talent, a band I personally hadn't heard of, but they made the official song of Six Invitational 2024, We Move as One, or as I like to call it, Hand Me the Hammer! And I think it's got to be the loudest music performance I've ever seen. It absolutely popped in the arena. Then, of course, we came to the single greatest match in Rainbow Six history. Not many words can describe how unreal FaZe versus W7M was, especially the final map of Nighthaven. W7M are one of my favorite teams in the world and have been for a while. I first met them in Berlin back at the Major in 2022 when they knocked out my homeboy Onigiri and the Thai team of Elevate. But my casting partner Mandy and I spoke to the W7M boys back then and really got a feel for what good people and hard workers this squad is. Back in Berlin, W7M's coach Igor actually gave me his jersey, and this is what I wore on the Showmatch. We've casted W7M a bunch of times since then, and back in Atlanta, I did my first ever grand final cast at a major where W7M beat Los and became the first two-time major championship in history. That grand final in Atlanta is the greatest moment of my career in esports as a caster, and I knew that there was only one answer to the question that W7M posed in Montreal a year ago when they lost the grand final, and that was to go back to back to back 2 majors and then winning the 6th Invitational in front of their home crowd in Brazil. It was a fairy tale. And unfucking believably, that's what happened. 6-1 down on map 5, and W7M brought it back round by round until they became champions. My dear friends and fellow Aussies, Guz and Xenox got their biggest shot ever in being asked to cast the grand final alongside the legendary Penguin. I was watching the game from up in the casting booth, and I got to tell you, they were absolutely destroyed. I've never seen Xenox that close to collapsing with exhaustion, and maybe I never will again. These 3 gave it everything they had, as did FaZe and W7M, and as a result, we got the greatest match in the history of Rainbow Six Siege. I've been doing esports for 7 years. I've done 6 SIs, majors, Pro League finals, dozens of events, but I've never seen anything like the 6th Invitational 2024 in Brazil. This was hands down the best Rainbow Six Siege event in history, and I'm so lucky to have been a part of it.